to think that she's not well loved in this province, I mean, it's not the case. And so it's not always good to take issue with people who do political opinion, but I just felt like on that one point, she's earned her reputation of who she is, and she is quite popular because she's always stood up for the little person.
So that's Greg Kelly, Liberal MNA rather, the husband of Marwa Risky. He's referencing David Hertel, who was on yesterday afternoon, and we were talking about this because Charles Maillard made the announcement not to invite Marwa back to the caucus. And David had said, internally or whatever, she's not that... And he referenced Dominic Anglade, I think, as well, same kind of idea that she wasn't that well respected. And Greg is kind of like, no, that's not the case. He said, look, David and I know each other, we're friends, whatever, but I didn't think that was fair because she is well respected within... So I don't know. Either way.
I would say... Hang on, I just lost my sound here. I can't hear myself. Sorry about this. I would say what I've been told by people who were around Pablo Rodriguez during the whole saga of the Brownie Gate was that she was not a team player.
Okay,
that's something that's often reproached to Marwa Risky, is that she works for herself, and among liberal circles, that's how she is viewed by some people. Now, the fact that she's not appreciated or not, I mean, she's a highly respected parliamentarian among all parties. I feel like she is seen as someone who is highly ethical, and that's why since the beginning of that whole story, I believed her. I believed what she said personally. I thought she did the right thing to intervene and fire Geneviève Vance when she was, from what we understand, informed of actions that were not necessarily respecting the law or the rules in Quebec. And I still believe that in the end, UPAC will probably prove her right. And the court proceedings, because she's also in court right now, that's the main reason why Charles Mignard refused to reintegrate her in the Liberal caucus. It's because she's still in court against Geneviève Vance on the true reasons that led her to make that decision.
At the end of all this, when this is all played out, UPAC court and everything else, and let's say she's cleared, we'll assume she will be, does he then invite her back in, or is that ship sailed?
Well, it depends when the inquiry will be over, because let's not forget that the session ends at the end of the spring, early summer, and then we're going in an election. So is she going to be back in time for that? If ever UPAC says there's nothing there and she was wrong to do that, then maybe she won't be coming back. But if UPAC says, on the other hand, yes, she was right, and we're going to move forward with accusations against some of those people,
right,
then I would bring her back.
Okay.
If I were Charles Mignard, just to show that I'm not the same. It's a new leader, it's a new leadership, and we are moving towards a fully ethical liberal party, I would bring her back. But I would wait until this is all over.
You brought up the election, which of course is in October, but now there's some speculation. Maybe we have an early election. You think someone drops the hammer provincially before then? It
could really happen, yes, because let's say the new leader of the CQ will be elected, new premier as well, will be elected on April the 12th. They would have time, let's say, in just 2 weeks, maybe, to have a cabinet shuffle, appoint new ministers, and then eventually launch a snap election to try and surprise their opponents and benefit from the fact that he or she, whether it's Christine Fréchette or Bernard Dréville, is the new guy in charge.
Okay.
So yes, I would see that as a potential. It's very hypothetical at this point, but it is a possibility. The CQ still has a lot of money, so they are in a good position to launch an election. And it could surprise the Liberals, because right now, since they had no leader for the past few months, the recruitment of new candidates, fundraising, all of this was put on hold basically within the party, because nobody wanted to be associated to the Liberal Party.
So they would not want to see an early election.
I would tend to believe that it would be to the advantage of the CEQ to try and have a snap election. Yes.
I want to talk about you brought something up that's really interesting. The whole cyclic scandal that's been going on now for a while. We had the Law Commission report come out, and I heard this come up the other day into your column today in the Gazette. Mm-hmm. We in Quebec have the License Registration Board as a public entity.
Yeah.
It's not this way in most of the rest of the country, right?
Exactly.
It's privatized there. So what's the advantage or disadvantage, and why is this now something being discussed?
So in Canada, you only have such bodies in Quebec, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and BC. In the rest of the country, in other provinces, it's the private sector is in charge of insuring for both. Well, here in Quebec, you have private insurance for damages to your property, but for damages for injuries, personal injuries, you're covered by the SAAQ. Right. In other provinces, that's not the way it works. It's all left to the private sector, and same thing for license and registration. So you go to an office, it's run by a private body that oftentimes has an agreement with the government to manage that.
Okay.
We have a similar I would say some of those offices here in Quebec are managed by the private sector or non-profit organizations, and some of them are run by the SAAQ. What I'm saying is that we should, and I got access to some data that was compiled by the Montreal Economic Institute that shows clearly that they compare the situation between Quebec and Alberta. And it's clear that in Alberta, people are better served. It's much cheaper, up to 60% cheaper for certain services in Alberta. And on top of that, you have more access to services because there's 3 times more service points per million vehicles insured in Alberta than in Quebec. So in the face of it, and it's the same situation in Ontario, if you look at other provinces, Ontario has evaluated the possibility of creating a public entity like the SAAQ in the 90s. They got rid of that idea quite quickly it was back in the days under Bob Ray, and they kept it to the private sector. So if it works in other provinces, what I'm saying is, why would it not work in Quebec, especially knowing what happened and the conclusions of the Gallant Commission? We have high government inefficiency right now with the SAAQ, and there's a culture there where projects are never expected to be delivered on time and on budget. It's not the same culture with the private sector. If we give it to the private sector, I'm sure we will be better served as
well. Listen,
and as
I mean,
taxpayers.
you have something to compare it to. You have data that's relative, right? You're saying there are more service centers. It's less expensive to get. Where's the downside in that?
Well, and on top of that, those who defend the public model will say, well, here we have the no fault. Well, you know what? Alberta is implementing the no fault for everybody in their province by 2027. So, yes, I understand the arguments of saying, well, we have a public body, there's lots of jobs involved, but at the same time, we have to put first the interest of taxpayers and drivers. And if we can make it cheaper and more accessible with the private sector, then why shouldn't we do it?
Are we going to look at this? Or you have an impression that someone is going to bring this to the government and say we should consider looking at this?
I don't feel it was not included in the recommendations of the Gallant report. I don't feel like right now there's an appetite for that among major parties. Maybe someone like Éric Duhem and the Conservative Party of Quebec could be interested in including this and making it one of their proposals in the next election.
But why, if it saves money and it's more efficient, God forbid we should have something like that here, but why wouldn't like the Liberals, for example, say, look, the rest of Canada, many other provinces have this. We would avoid getting this headache with SECLIC run by, an oversight body, and let them run, privately, and everything would be fine. Why wouldn't the party come out and say that? Well,
what the SECLIC scandal showed is that there's a heavy bureaucracy within this organization. And I understand, there's some interesting proposals in the Gallant report about, implementing new measures to make sure that this doesn't happen anymore. But I would have loved to see the report go beyond that, beyond just fixing the problems of the actual model, and maybe looking at other models in other provinces where it works really well. And I fear that this is, and that's why I brought up the topic today in my column in the Gazette, it's because I feel like we have to have that discussion as a society in Quebec.
I'd be okay. Tim Hortons could run it. I have no problem with that. They're pretty good. Get in,
well,
get out.
They're pretty bad at service. So
Are they? Well, I don't know which one you're going to.
You haven't been to Tim Hortons recently, have you?
Not to the one you go to, apparently.
Obviously not.
All right. I guess the only other thing I want to bring up here, so we talked about Greg Kelly. is this story, which I had not seen, about a bonus being given to family doctors. What's this about?
Family doctors are going to get another bonus, believe it or not. On top of the 14.5% increase in salary they negotiated with the government, on top of a recent 2.5 incentive to get more patients, well, the government found, believe it or not, we have no more money for nothing else, but we found somewhere in Quebec City $75 million to give to the doctors as an incentive to take 500,000 more patients by March the 31st. That's a very...
over and above?
And above everything else they got recently in terms of increase. So let's go back to just a few months ago. The government started with incentives such as we will decrease your salary by 25% if you don't take more patients. Then it went down to 15% less in salary. And then all of a sudden, it's no longer about decreasing their salary. It's about giving them bonuses to take more patients. But it's not about taking care of those patients. It's about making sure they're on the list in their offices. So we have no guarantee that these 500,000 patients will get access to services. They will just have a family doctor that will be linked to their healthcare
and
dossier.
Hope for the best.
And hope for the best. Hope you can get an appointment with your doctor within the next 3 weeks.
And still no deal with medical specialists. I got to wrap it up. Raph, thank you.
I'm Dylan Playfair.
And I'm Tyler Smith.
We're putting loneliness in the penalty box by talking to some of our favorite athletes about the importance of friendship.
This is Bromance.
Bromance is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, proudly Canadian-owned and operated. Charm has been part of your love stories and bromances for over 50 years. And you can find Bromance on the iHeartRadio network or wherever you get your podcasts.